Welcome to Metropole Television. This is your economic review this morning. Let's jump into it. We are joined by Odhiambo Ramogi to help us through some of the major headlines that you're waking up to today. Now, the rate of employment in Kenya declined by 0.15% from 2015 to 2019, while the youth unemployment rate went from 7.4% to 7.24% in the same years. Now, to encourage and elevate self-employment, and even during the pandemic. Now let's jump onto that, where the data from the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics now indicates that 15.87 million people between April and the end of June compared to 17.59 million the previous quarter. Now this data does not read well for close to 1 million young Kenyans also who graduate from university each year, according to data by KNBS, which further indicates that young people are the ones that have been affected the most by job cuts in the economy. Now, quarterly labor force survey also indicates that nearly 4.64 million people were jobless at the end of June, up from 2.494 million at the end of March, the month when Kenya reported its first case of COVID-19. Now, this report by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics coming at a time when the Federation of Employers in Kenya also indicate that 600 firms have sent home staff on redundancy claims in the first half of the year. Question being, where will the jobs come from this year? And Odhiambo Ramogi, that is the biggest question that everybody really is looking at. If you're talking about the COVID-19 pandemic wiping off 1.7 million jobs so far.
Yeah, it is it's a bad place to be. And when I looked at those statistics, I realized that unemployment has actually doubled from what was reported in March to what has been reported at the end of August. And that is just in a span of around 6 months. So it's a bad place to be. Sadly, to say that we might find ourselves in this quagmire for the next 3 more months or 6 more months, depending on how the government manages itself. Our hope is that the economic stimulus package will get to the ground, will be used to do more production, to create employment, to add more numbers than what we are seeing. Sadly, the money was approved in June and it is not yet being felt on the ground. On the other hand, the county allocation revenue bill has not been assented to or accepted by all members. So that also brings another issue altogether, because money is not going to the ground. And as long as money is not going to the ground, and we are not getting foreign direct investment, because even even the rest of the world is in this place, then that puts us in a very bad position. It's hard to say where the jobs are going to come from without a clear plan, at least a clear economic recovery plan from Treasury, because the plan they had put in place is not being implemented as it was.
Pretty much. Therefore, Odhiambo, another area that we're looking at now is that since we're talking about 1.7 million jobs that are lost so far, do you think that the economic stimulus package will do anything, if at all, or has done anything, therefore, to lessen the amount of jobs that we've seen getting lost as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic?
I think I lost you there. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. The question was, do you think that the economic stimulus package that was heavily touted as one of those that were going to alleviate some of the sufferings of the economy has really done anything to change that number? All right, as we wait for Odhiambo Ramogi to join us, we seem to be having that technical issue again this morning. Now, if you really look at where we are right now in terms of unemployment numbers in the country, you can actually see that all the way from where, and we're looking at that as a percentage, all right? And we're looking at of ages 15 to 24, which we do know the majority of the Kenyan population is also youthful as well. That you can actually see how they have been dropping, and there has been that rise again. If you look at it from 2019, now they're saying that, well, if you look at where we are right now again, as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, the numbers could be worse because that's what we're having that discussion this morning. We've seen those numbers indicating that up to now 1.7 million jobs have been lost as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, with the FKE also coming in to tell us that 600 farms did send home people on redundancy claims. And this morning we're also going to look at other farms that have also declared all their employees redundant as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic as well, which therefore puts that into a bigger question on exactly how the economic stimulus package, if it has done anything therefore to change the face of those numbers that we're looking at today. Because if it's 1.7 million, then you ask yourself the question, would it have been worse hadn't we had the economic stimulus package? So let's get back into that, Odhiambo. Now, we do know that we do have an economic stimulus package that we do expect right now is touching the various industries and sectors of the economy. Do you think that the numbers could have been worse hadn't there been an economic stimulus package?
They would. I think what you are referring to is what the president approved as early as March. That had a raft of measures, including some fiscal measures, tax reprieve on individuals, on companies, and that's a good thing, because it helped us to at least collect data, be able to appreciate what we are dealing with. It bought us some time between March and at least June, but we needed an injection. At the end of the day, the real issue is money moving in the economy? And that is why we needed this injection of 56.6 billion, so that then it can move in the economy and create a multiplier effect, both in Nairobi and in the other cities and in the other counties, as it spreads across the country. Sadly, this is not being felt. This is what I meant by the money is not yet on the ground. And because of that, then we are where we are, and we probably are looking at a bigger problem moving forward. But you and I, and even Treasury, appreciates that the measures that were put in place in March were not sufficient, though they were necessary.
Pretty much. A question that I've been asking you from time to time, Odhiambo Ramogi, and probably today in the morning we can put a rest to this case, is that how would have been companies enabled, therefore, to retain these jobs? Because the only thing that we're seeing in the economy is a lot of redundancy declarations, a lot of companies that are saying we might go out of business for good. Should that have been the focus for government that was riding on the promise of job creation?
It could, but I need you to remember one reality and one fact, which is we are in the midst of a health crisis that has sadly turned into an economic crisis. And an economic crisis is usually spurred by market issues or market problems, or even, if you like, a market crisis. What we are seeing is the question that as a CEO or an executive in a corporate organization asks himself, how do I make the ends meet? How do I survive? How do I ensure that I minimize cost? I retain value of the business. And when this trouble is over, I can still be able to do business, which means my cash flow will not be affected, which means then that I will not have committed myself to too much debt that I am not able to pay, which means I can still generate income and revenue. And so, however much we try, there are people that will still lose jobs because it will still not make sense in some sectors for the executive to retain their staff. However, what the stimulus package helps is, one, it minimizes these losses, so that if there were perhaps then 100 people to lose their jobs, then we are probably looking at 50 or 40. But it is not going to be 100% that these people are not going to lose their jobs, because it means that I am not, as an executive, I am not going to pay some taxes. That money is saved. That money can help at least 2 more employees to stay on board. Because at the end of the day, I really needed these employees. That's why I hired them, and they are good. That's why I have retained them. So I want them to be on board, and as given any opportunity, I will want to retain them. And so the stimulus package does help to retain some. But sadly to say, some people will still lose some jobs. And what I love about Kenyans, and I think I've seen this across board, is we have become very flexible, and people are starting what we have become, what we've now baptized as COVID-19 businesses that are coming up in the streets, that are coming up all over. And I would ask the county governments to be gracious to these people so that at least they pick themselves up before they start pushing them for the health licenses, for permits, for all those sorts of things, so that then we are retaining jobs, but in a very different way as opposed to the white collar jobs that we're used to.
Pretty much. Then, Ramogi, let's move on to the next issue that we have for you this morning, that even as the senators continue to deliberate on a formula for county revenue allocation, Treasury has now said that the counties will receive 3.5 billion shillings less this financial year as a result of the various tax measures to cushion Kenyans from the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic and restrictions to curb its spread had collections in the last quarter of 2019 of the 2019-2020 period, leading to the cash crunch. The Treasury CS also indicated that the government's budget review that freed 53.7 billion shillings to fight the disease and cushion households and businesses reeling from the economic meltdown also occasioned cuts for the county funds. Now, cash delay is already brought about by an ongoing stalemate in the Senate House. I've seen some of the devolved units struggle to pay salaries and provide basic services like health and carry out roads construction, highlighting the effects of the cash transfer hitches from Treasury. Now, Odhiambo, what can be done really to finally get a solution to the existing stalemate at the Senate after weeks of a no solution on county allocation formula?
I think it's a political issue. It's not an economic issue. It's not a financial stalemate. It's merely a political stalemate. And if the president and a few gentlemen could just have a cup of tea, apparently this tea is what brought us the handshake in the first place. This tea is what brought us the union of Jubilee.
Would you say it is a political issue, Odhiambo? Because we do know the latest development that we have from the Senate House is that they formed a 12-member Senate committee that we did hear Lusaka say it has got no tribe, it's got no party, it's a goal race, it's going to give us a solution, but seemingly they have also failed.
There is no such thing as a man with no tribe, no bias. There is no such thing. Ultimately, this 12-member committee are people with biases, people that have interests, and worse, they are political animals. That's why they're in the Senate, and they are receiving instructions from some quarters. And that's why I'm telling you, the people giving them instructions should just have a sit down, take a cup of tea. If they are going not to talk for the first 45 minutes like they did the last time, fair enough. But at the end of the day, let them just sit down and agree how to share this money. Because it's very little amount. 300 billion is very, and now the more noise they are making, the less amount is going to the county, which is funny because I thought after Parliament has approved expenditure, then it should go the way Parliament has approved it. So I'm wondering why it's being reduced after approvals. But anyway, let's watch and see. For me, I think it's more of a political issue, and the political the class need to just sit down and reconcile the ideas so that we have a way forward.
All right. Now, there's that announcement from Treasury that, yes, they're going to receive 3.5 billion less in county funds. Was that unprecedented? Yes. We didn't know that we're fighting the COVID-19 pandemic, but should the county suffer as a result of Treasury trying to fight the COVID-19 pandemic?
Certainly not. And if we were following the law to the letter, health is a devolved function. And so if there are any more allocations that are needed for fighting COVID, I would imagine that they'd say, they'd ask Parliament to allow them to allocate more resources to the county government so that then the county governments can fight COVID-19. A retention of this money, it seems to be fishy, it seems to be illegal. But then again, this has been going on for a very long time. For me, it could be just a way of grandstanding and telling Parliament, you keep bickering over what we want, this is what's going to happen, you're going to get less and less money. And it will not succeed because at the end of the day, really, these gentlemen and ladies at the Senate are invested heavily on this. And I don't think they're just going to let it go because of 3.5 billion loss.
There are already proposals to give the counties, I mean, that looks like the next chapter for the Senate House, to give the counties 50% of what they got in the 2019 financial year, just as they wait to find a resolution to this county revenue allocation formula. Do you think that is the prudent way to do things?
I am a strong believer in decentralizing resources in this country because I have walked and gone across the country and I've seen what devolution has done, which a centralized system did not succeed to do for a very, very long time, around over 34 years. I have seen development, I've seen an increase. What we have been reporting as development or GDP growth has mainly come from those quotas in the counties as businesses pick up. And so if we can increase that amount, I am all for it. Because at the end of the day, why are we retaining money at the center when most of the functions are devolved? Education, which is the major spender, is devolved, at least the lower ends of it. Health is devolved, land is devolved, agriculture is devolved. And so you're wondering, are we retaining all the money at the top merely for security and foreign affairs, while we could take it to the people where it's actually really needed? The proposal to do 50% of revenue is a brilliant idea. I would support it all the way.
Pretty much. All right, let's move on to the last issue that we have for you this morning. Now, East Africa Portland Cement, EAPCC, has declared all its 270 employees redundant, a move that the manufacturer hopes will give it operating space in a cash-strapped environment. Now, this comes on the back of a construction industry report from KNBS that indicates that cement consumption rose 4.5% in the first 7 months of the year, as the real estate sector remained relatively unaffected by the COVID-19 restrictions that heavily affected other sectors of the economy. Now, the managing director, Stephen Nvey, while contradicting the report by KNBS, said that the company has been adversely affected by the COVID-19 pandemic, prompting the management to restructure operations that indicated that some of the employees fired might be hired back on contract after coming up with a new salary structure. Last year, the troubled NSE-listed firm sent home 800 employees in a bid to reduce the firm's bloated wage bill. Good. Is this a case of Portland Cement or a trend in most of the government agencies, Odhiambo Ramogi? Because this is coming on the back of KNBS telling you the demand for cement has been going up. But the director is saying, we have been affected by the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic.
There are three scenarios. Scenario one is that the assertions by the president that the economy is growing nonetheless are false. I would say that with a pinch of salt because he's my president, and accusing the president of lying to the republic is wrong. But the reality is that governments lie. And it is the duty of governments to lie as much as it is the duty of the citizens not to believe those lies. And so that is the first scenario, because that would mean, therefore, that the economy is not doing so well, and as such, companies are struggling. Scenario two is that KNBS and the figures that they are churning out are wrong. And we've been saying this for a very long time, that some of the figures they are churning out, especially as regards growth, economic growth, are wrong. And it looks like now the directors at EAPC are confirming our worries that perhaps we are being hoodwinked by numbers that are not accurate. In which case then EAPC is forced to do what is necessary and move with it. But while we are still on the figures that KNBS is giving, one wonders where is the money coming from for real estate development when everybody is withholding what they have? Number one. Number two, what's the rush for anyone who has an interest in developing a real estate business to invest now and actually do the construction now, irrespective of the circumstances? I mean, if I were the person doing the investment, I would want to hold on. I would want to wait and see. I'd want to see how things are going. But why am I in a hurry? That brings another scenario, which is that the money that is financing real estate in this country is not clean money. And that is something that a reality we faced the first time there were talks of the piracy money being laundered in Kenya, because there was a lot of money coming in that pushed the real estate prices higher. And so scenario three is that the money that is being used in real estate construction in Kenya is not clean money. It is possible to be corruption money, which, irrespective of the circumstances, the owners and the people that are holding this money must cleanse their money, whether it rains or there is sunshine. And that is why they are still in a hurry. Or it might be some other crime money that is being laundered, whether it's drug money or trafficking money, you never know. And that is even a worst case scenario from KNBS lying to us about those figures. As in, if they are right, it's ugly. If they are wrong, it's bad. And the final scenario is that EAPC has finally found an opportunity to get rid of their staff, and the excuse is COVID-19. Because they have not been doing very well in the past anyway. So it's not like COVID-19 is now the only thing that is standing in their way to success. No, they have reported losses in the past when construction industry is going up, when the use of cement is going up. And so apparently now they have found a perfect excuse to let go of their staff and negotiate something workable with them. And so all the scenarios are not beautiful. It's one of those pieces of news that has layers, onion layers, all through. As you unlayer it, you realize there is a smell, and it's not a beautiful one.
Pretty much. All right, now I want to ask you this question again, Odhiambo Ramogi. It is 2020. We're headed to 2021. Should the government be in the business of business? I mean, if you go back and see exactly how government agencies, all the way from SGR, KQ, and now Portland Cement are actually performing, should they be in the business of business?
That is a classical Keynesian question. Should the government be in business? It's a classical economics question. On one hand, government being in business usually helps to make us get some of the things that probably private companies are not able to get. For example, a construction project the size of SGM can only be done maybe by a government because of the amount of investment needed, and because of the time it takes before the return on investment is felt or is seen. And so a private investor will go in losses if they attempted that. So there is that. There is the part where the government sometimes prefers, especially essential services like Kenya Power, electricity provision or electricity generation. They prefer to invest in this themselves, so that then they are not, or the public is not under the control of a single individual or a single company at the mercy of that company. But the other scenario is that they tend to be inefficient in their business. And this is why most of government businesses are associated with the losses. And you've seen this, of course, EAPC, you've seen this with Kenya Airways, even before it was privatized. You've seen this with Kenya Railways. Fair enough. So whether they should be in business or not is not an issue. I think what we need to look at is the micro analysis of the businesses that they are doing. Government owns Safaricom, and Safaricom is one of the most efficient, one of the most successful businesses in the region.
And so you need to look into which business they are in and ask yourself whether they should be in that business. They have, Cabinet has sat down and agreed to privatize some of these businesses. I remember Kenya Pipeline is meant for privatization. Kenya Railways is meant for privatization, at least a part of it. And so there is progress to privatize. Let's hope that that will help in some way.
Pretty much. Odhiambo Ramogi, always a pleasure speaking to you every morning, sir.
Thank you, Simba. It's a pleasure too.
All right, that's how we come up with the end of our economic review this morning. We take a short break. Once we come back, our sector trends this morning.